All right, let's break this down with Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill, and Caitlin Huey-Burns, Real Clear Politics national reporter. Both are joining us from Washington. Bob, to you first. Marco Rubio may have won the news cycle last week, but he only won one state on Super Tuesday. So does Rubio have a viable shot at this nomination at this point?
I think it looks very difficult, Vlad. I mean, unless somehow other candidates start to drop out and Rubio gets momentum. I mean, last week he tried to out-Trump Trump. It didn't work. I think his whole the campaign map looks very good for us now. Doesn't work. I think it would have been better if he just acknowledged, hey, it was a rough night, but we're not done. We're going to win Florida. I mean, he talks very optimistically about Florida. He is down 20 points in Florida. So the path does not look favorable for Marco Rubio.
You know, Caitlin, after Super Tuesday, Ted Cruz may actually be the closest one to take down Trump. You may recall even Lindsey Graham said that the GOP may have to resort to rally behind the Texas senator. So is it really one of those things where their backs are just up against the wall?
Right. Ted Cruz did have a good night, all things considered, last night. He was able to win 3 states, and so now he can say that he is the only Republican candidate who has a proven record, really, of beating Donald Trump. And now he's encouraging the rest of the party to consolidate around his candidacy. But as we know, Republicans are very reluctant to do so because they, are not friends of Cruz, so to speak. And so that's another challenge here. And so you're looking at a scenario in which Ted Cruz is emboldened and will continue to race on. John Kasich is staying in until March 15th, his home state of Ohio, and so is Marco Rubio. So the party remains fractured at least until then, and all signs are pointing to a contested convention. And even if that's the case, it's difficult to see them overtaking Trump in any way.
Bob, I find it really interesting that not a lot of people are talking about this today, but I know you probably caught that moment that Donald Trump made a veiled threat at House Speaker Paul Ryan during his press conference last night, saying that if they don't actually get along, meaning the Republican Party and with Ryan, Paul Ryan will have a big price to pay. What do you make of that?
I think it's fascinating, the relationship between Ryan and Trump. And Ryan doesn't like talking about the presidential race, but he has talked about it this week. And basically, without naming Trump, chastising Trump, as well as his Muslim policy. And I think that was really a brushback pitch right at Paul Ryan's head by Trump, that he's got the megaphone now. He's the front runner. And if Paul Ryan continues to criticize him publicly, certainly, Trump is going to return in kind. So far, Trump has been pretty nice to Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, that he can work with them. But if they continue to rip him or try to take the nomination from him, well, then Trump is going to turn his jets on the 2 congressional leaders.
You know, Caitlin, Trump has been very, very vocal, and he's actually pretty proud of the fact that he says that he's been able to self-fund his campaign. But how big of a risk will that be if he does make it to the general election?
Well, the general election will be very expensive, as we know, but Donald Trump has not had to spend money in the way that other candidates have and other presidential candidates traditionally have to do. I mean, he does earn a lot of free media attention, as we know. We've seen over the past several months. He's able to command news cycles. And, Florida is an example of a state that's very expensive to run in, but Trump will be advantaged insofar as he'll have kind of that national ID. And so I expect that to continue throughout the general. Right now, on the other side, kind of the anti-Trump movement is saying that they will have a lot of money behind their movement if they believe that they can take down Donald Trump in some way. But that's also very difficult.
Bob, and actually, Caitlin, I want you to weigh in on this as well. People on Twitter have been talking about Chris Christie's facial expressions. You know, you guys were on Twitter all night long, like I was, as he was standing next to Donald Trump during that news conference in Florida. Without really asking you what you think was going through his mind, because you're reporters and you do solid reporting, but what do you think was going through Chris Christie's mind?
Well, I think he's thinking about possibly serving either as Trump's number 2 on the Veep ticket, which I don't think is likely, but certainly will be discussed in the months ahead, possibly as Attorney General. But it's interesting to see, Christie usually commands the room. He's the one yelling at reporters. And here he was behind Trump, and basically he has taken a lot of criticism from the Republican establishment for endorsing Donald Trump, and some have said, hey, listen, he doesn't have much of a political future now that his term as governor is expiring, and obviously he didn't do it on the presidential, so he's trying to parlay this into a spot. We'll see, but I think that if Trump does become president, I think Christie would serve in his administration.
Caitlin, what do you think?
Yeah, I wish we had one of those thought bubbles running next to him last night. It was just kind of one of those made-for-caption moments. I am interested to see whether Christie has any sway among colleagues, particularly among any of these governors, trying to get them onto Trump's side at some point. Because the question does remain, you know, if Republicans feel that they can't ultimately take down Trump, do they start reaching out to him in any way, trying to, you know, bridge this huge divide and very, you know, it's more of a divide, more than a divide. So I'm wondering if Christie will have any sway. But as Bob mentioned, he really has lost a lot of respect from his former colleagues.
Well, he's also lost a lot of respect in his home state of New Jersey. 6 local newspapers all banded together today to write a collaborative editorial asking him basically to resign, to resign. Let's turn now, though, to the Democrats because they deserve our attention as well. Bob, you know, Hillary Clinton swept 7 states last night. Where does that leave Bernie Sanders?
It leaves Bernie Sanders, I think, in a lot of trouble. Hillary Clinton had a big night. She is up big if you count the committed delegates, the superdelegates. She has about 200 members of Congress who are backing her. That helps Hillary Clinton big time. However, Bernie Sanders is a money machine. He raised more money in January than Hillary Clinton did. So I think he's going to be continuing his race. But I also think that Bernie Sanders has been fairly tame to Hillary Clinton, did not go after her on the email controversy. But there was no doubt about it that after Sanders won big in New Hampshire and the Clinton campaign seemed to be in chaos, now they are on top, they're cruising, and they have a clear path to the nomination.
Caitlin, it seems that this race for the Democrat nomination has pushed Hillary Clinton further left than she wanted to be. In other words, she expected to be talking about her time as Secretary of State and talking about national security, the threats to the homeland. She's had to address these issues that are important to Bernie Sanders and his supporters. Does that make it harder for her to focus on Donald Trump?
Right. I think that will be a challenge for her as she is already starting to pivot to the general election. I think Bernie Sanders will continue to stay in this race. As Bob mentioned, he is well funded, so that will he'll continue to be pushing those progressive messages and challenging Clinton at least on those issues. And so I think as she tries to pivot to the general election and focus on Trump, she'll be faced with that. But she also, I think, feels emboldened now to make the experience argument that she was trying to make in the Democratic primary. I think we'll hear a lot more about that, trying to reach out to independent voters now and maybe some moderate Democrats who are really worried about what's going on their side. If she can make that argument, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if she starts making that pretty soon.
Bob, just curious, do you think that Sanders will just hang on long enough to make sure that all of the issues that are important to him are out there?
I think so. I think he's going to champion his issue. I mean, basically, even if Bernie Sanders, which looks likely, is not going to get the nomination, he has been a big winner of this 2016 cycle. A lot of people know who he is. A lot of people didn't know who he was before he ran, and he is going to get a great speaking slot at the convention. I think he's going to urge his supporters to get behind Hillary Clinton, and there's no doubt about it. Hillary Clinton may be able to pull off some Republicans who don't want to vote for Donald Trump, and she's going to certainly be reaching out to those type of voters. So I think Bernie Sanders is, you know, he's got to be somewhat satisfied even if he doesn't get the nomination because he has moved Hillary Clinton effectively to the left. And I think he'll have some type of role in the Democratic Party platform at the convention, and that's a victory.
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Caitlin. Go ahead.
I would say I definitely agree with that, and I think Hillary Clinton will need to start reaching out to Bernie Sanders more and more, especially as he has shown that he is galvanizing a lot of the youth vote, and that is a major vulnerability for her still, and she has recognized that too, and that's incredibly important for the general election.
And women as well, we should point out, Caitlin,
and women,
too.
Of course,
absolutely.
Yes.
Well, he could turn out to be a very valuable asset to Ms. Clinton.
Right.
We shall see. Bob Cusack and Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.